What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicy Jet Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rooney, and first I want to start off by saying Happy NFL New Year to all those folks out there who celebrate. And for those of you that don't know, last Wednesday at 4 p.m. officially became the brand new 2025 year for the National Football League. It's where everything kicked off, free agency started, teams could start signing players, and it was all underway. It was a flurry of things that went on over the past week. And for me, I'm going to skip all the things that I normally do. We skipped our intro. We're going to skip trivia. We're going to skip the gym break because for me, there is so much Jets news out there that has gone on over the past week or so, probably week and a half. And unfortunately, it's my favorite time of year. And I'm so excited to jump on this podcast and talk multiple times a day, maybe have a podcast a day about all the things that the Jets did for free agency and how the team improved or how it didn't. But unfortunately, as it goes, because I'm a Jets fan and I can't have anything I want, I got sick. So it's been a miserable week, but I'm finally on the mend and I'm feeling better and ready to talk about my team. So let's get right into it. What I want to do today is talk a little bit about who are some of the people the Jets re-signed, so people that we're bringing back for next year. A couple of the folks the Jets actually cut in the last week and what that means for the team going forward. I want to talk about who did we sign in free agency, including that quarterback one, which everybody probably knows about at this point. Who did we lose in free agency? Who are some of the folks that were on the team last year that are no longer and now on other teams? And then finally, let's go around the horn a little bit, talk about around the league, see who some of the folks are that moved to different teams, who got contract extensions, and what it actually means for the Jets moving forward. So with that, there's a lot that has happened, so let's jump right into it. First, I want to start with some of the folks that we re-signed during this free agency period. Now, the good news is we got the big one done first. Jamien Sherwood was one that me and Matt talked about last week as the middle linebacker we wanted back to the New York Jets because he's young, he's only 25, he's an ascending player, he's homegrown, and he was our team MVP last year. So luckily the Jets, I think this was on Sunday, right before free agency started on Monday, re-signed Jamien Sherwood to a 3-year, $45 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. Now, at first glance, you might think, wow, that's a big contract. But if you actually look at all the deals that were being put in place during free agency, he was right in line with everybody else that got deals. Like one of the people we talked about was Nick Bolton, 24-year-old linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, as someone who I was like, why the heck haven't the Chiefs re-signed him? Right after our podcast last week, he gets re-signed by the Chiefs for the same amount of money that Jamien Sherwood is getting from the Jets. So I'm really happy that they were able to invest their money in a homegrown player, finally a draft pick who's worked out that we've re-signed to a long-term deal. And you got to be pumped about it. I think the interesting part about it now is like, okay, he's the guy. Like he has taken over for CJ Mosley. He is our future at linebacker. But what does that mean for Quincy Williams? Quincy Williams, the linebacker next to him, 29 years old, only got signed to like an $18 million deal a couple years back, and he became a first-team All-Pro. So he's got to be feeling like, where's my contract extension? And in my mind, I'm thinking, we have two undersized linebackers right now. They're both really fast. They can tackle, but they're not going to like bowl you over. They're pretty good in coverage too. But like that's not really Aaron Glenn's kind of a linebacker. We're looking for someone a little bit bigger, like a Dre Greenlaw. Like CJ Mosley he's a little undersized too, but he'd probably be a little bit better fit. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Aaron Glenn now thinks, do we just let Quincy Williams walk next year at age 30? Probably. It's probably what I would do, to be totally honest with you, unless we can get something a little bit cheaper, but I doubt it. He's going to be looking for his last payday. So that's going to be a really interesting piece. And then the second part is what does that do to CJ Mosley now that we re-signed Jamien Sherwood? We will talk about that in a little bit because it did have some down funnel impacts on the rest of the team. But really excited to have Jamien Sherwood back. He's going to be the guy on the headset. He's going to be calling the plays on the defense. So I'm pumped to have a young ascending talent like Jamien Sherwood back. So that was great. The next two we talked about last week, but Irv Charles and Xavier Newman, they were tendered. So They had a set amount of money that they get paid now. It's like a year, 1 point something million dollars. So those two are back. Tony Adams was also tendered, but with the right of first refusal. What that means is if any team tries to offer him a contract, the Jets get the opportunity first to match that contract before he just goes off to whatever team has offered him this deal. So more likely than not, Tony Adams will be back as a Jet next year, which I think is okay. He didn't play great as a starting safety last year, and infamously, Woody Johnson wants to bench him. Like out of all the players, he's picking on a safety for some reason. But I think he's still young and he's still learning. So I feel like we have a good secondary coaching staff around him that can now teach him how to be a better player. And hopefully he doesn't necessarily have to start. He can be our third safety instead of being our number one safety like he was over the past few years. So happy to see Tony Adams back. Just hopefully it's not as a starter. We also re-signed Isaiah Oliver. We think it's a 1-year deal. The details haven't come out yet. But for him, he is just like a Swiss Army knife type player. So he could play safety. He could play nickel corner. He could play outside corner. So I just think a valuable piece like that you can move around is someone important to have. And I think the Jets really prioritized him when thinking about who they were going to re-sign this offseason. So happy to see Isaiah Oliver back. Jamin Davis is another person we got back, linebacker who's a former first-round pick of the Washington Commanders. He was like messing around with our practice squad last year, so he never actually played for us. I think this is just a camp body, to be totally honest with you. I think Aaron Glenn likes his athleticism, so he'll see if he can do anything with him. So if he does, positive upside. If he doesn't, we didn't waste any money really. So not a big deal. And then finally, the one that I didn't know if we were going to bring back, me and Matt talked about it last week on our free agency preview, but it was Kene Iguanu. I think that's how you say his name. He is that running back, but really a kick returner who returned that really long kick return for a touchdown against Seattle in his first game with us. Had another big return right after that, then got hurt. We never saw him again. But we re-signed him to a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. So hopefully he will be one of our starting kick returners next year because he was really exciting in the few moments we got to see him. So happy to have him back. But otherwise, that is it so far. The Jets have barely touched their roster from last year, which is both good and bad. We've been really bad for a long time. So I'm not surprised that Aaron Glenn's not impressed by the people we had in our team. But also I'm wow, that's a lot of holes that we're leaving our team with here going forward. And I know there are some players we did try to re-sign, which we'll talk about, that we couldn't. But yeah, there's a lot of holes on this team. The next piece to this I want to talk about is who did the Jets cut recently and how does that impact the rest of the team? So aside from the free agents, the folks we cut started with our starting quarterback. We officially cut Aaron Rodgers once the new league year started. And it's a post-June 1 cut. So for those of you that don't know what that means, every team gets 2 of these, 2 post-June 1 cuts. And what it allows you to do is split up the cap hit or the dead money that you're going to take on because of cutting this player. So Aaron Rodgers is, since he's a post-June 1 cut, once we get to June 1st, his cap hit will drop to $14 million, or his dead money will drop to $14 million. And then in 2026, it'll be $35 million. For me, I was in the boat of just get all $49 million of it over with in year 1, and we never have to think about it again. But I get it from the team's perspective because they're the cap is going to go up next year. We'll have more room to be flexible with it. And we can try to spend to win this year instead of flailing and being, 3 and whatever this year. So Aaron Rodgers, that's an interesting one. $14 million this year, $35 million next year. And he's actually holding the league hostage right now. I don't think this is his fault. I think it's the Vikings' fault. He has 3 options of where to go. It's Pittsburgh really wants him. The New York Giants desperately want him. And then Minnesota is contemplating whether to take him. I think Aaron feels he has the best chance to start and win in Minnesota. The Steelers would probably be his second choice, and then the Giants third. So we'll see where he ends up going. We don't know at this point. I would just tell all teams out there, get used to it. This is what he does. You should know that he's gonna wait it out and see. But I think this is more on the Vikings because the Vikings haven't decided what they wanted to do yet. So that's Aaron Rodgers. The second one is a sad one. This one hurts, but we let CJ Mosley go. CJ Mosley is a very interesting free agent case that we've had because we signed him for a lot of money when we were really bad. Like we were one of the worst teams in the league. I think we just got Adam Gase. It was not looking good to be a Jets fan. And we signed him for big money too. So he starts for the his first year. A story about CJ Mosley. I will never forget this. He had the greatest half of linebacker play I will ever see in my life, and I know I will never see a better one. It was unbelievable. It must have been the first drive of the game. It's Jets-Bills, first week of the season. Josh Allen kind of scrambles a little bit and throws I think it was a little low, but it tipped up. And who's there? CJ Mosley catches the ball, runs it into the end zone for a touchdown. So one of his first plays as a Jet is a pick six for a touchdown, which unheard of. The Jets rarely score on defense. So that was amazing. Then a couple drives later, I think it's third down or something like that, CJ Mosley causes a fumble, and he picks that fumble up. So he has a interception for pick six, forced fumble, and fumble recovery. And then late in the half, Josh Allen is trying to sling it a little bit. I think they're on the 35 or the 40. Josh Allen drops back and he's gunning it into the end zone. So he's slinging it deep. And who's running stride for stride with this receiver he's throwing to is CJ Mosley. And CJ Mosley just turns up, knocks the ball down right into the air like it's nothing. So he's keeping up with wide receivers out there. It was unreal. But then unfortunately on that play, CJ Mosley tears his groin, out for the rest of the year. So we saw a half a game of CJ Mosley in year one. Year two, what happens? COVID comes. He sits out the whole year. Fans didn't love that. Even though the fans weren't in the stands either. Didn't love that he was sitting out. We wanted to see him play for us. So we were like, wow, what a waste of a free agent. He was here for a half. And he's going to be 2 years into his deal. We never got anything out of him. But from that point forward, he was one of the best players the Jets have ever had. He was an outstanding linebacker, leader of the defense. He had that winning mentality, keeping the locker room together. He was never a problem. I think he will go down as one of the better Jets free agents of all time, even though unfortunately we never got over the hump and could get to the playoffs with him. So it's amazing to me, but CJ Mosley spent more time on the Jets than he did the Ravens, which is actually pretty wild. Unfortunately, his career is now run down because of injuries. I hope he gets back on the field one day because I would love to see him play and hopefully get to the playoffs, but he was an awesome Jet. Now, he is another post-June 1 cut, which means we split his cap hit. So it's $8.8 million this year, $7.7 million next year. It actually saved us $4 million by cutting him after June 1st. So that's an interesting one. The last one that's up in the air is who the Jets should cut. We haven't cut Lazard yet. And the question is, will we? Because we have not signed, and I'm going to walk through all the people we signed. We didn't sign any amazing wide receivers. So it's Garrett Wilson and nobody right now. So do we keep Lazard just because he's a body that can, 3 times out of 7 catch the ball? Or do we just move on and, see what we can do in the draft? That's the big question. But right now, Allen Lazard is still on the New York Jets and he has not cut. So that is all of our re-signings. Those are who the Jets have cut. Let's get into the fun stuff, the nitty gritty. Who did the Jets sign? How are we making our team better for 2025? So the first thing I want to call out is as I'm sitting there half dead trying to go through my phone to catch up on everything that's going on. Number one, Twitter breaks during free agency period opening up, which is the absolute worst time in history for Twitter to break. So that was brutal. But the second thing I start noticing is as we start to see some of the folks that the Jets are signing, I noticed they all have the same agent. It's David Mulgeta, who is a great agent. He's got tons of clients. He's making so much money off some of these folks this offseason. But I'm thinking to myself, does Darren Muji only have one agent relationship? Is this what's happening right now? We're only signing folks who are with David Mulgeta? I don't know if there's anything to that. No one else has said anything about that. I just thought of it as I was looking through all the people we were signing. So it'll be interesting to see, as we go into next year or the rest of this offseason and sign bigger players, what that actually looks like. But I thought that was really interesting. But let's start with the big one. So the New York Jets have a brand new quarterback, and his name is Justin Fields. Justin Fields, who was drafted in the same exact draft class as Zach Wilson, another bust who did not make it with the Chicago Bears, goes to Pittsburgh, leads them to a 4-2 record, gets benched, and now becomes a free agent and decides to come to the Jets. It's a 2-year deal, $40 million with $30 million of it guaranteed. So for me, when I look at that deal, I'm like, yeah, that's starter money. That is 100% starter money. I think Aaron Glenn will pitch it as a competition going into the offseason training camp, all of that stuff. But for that amount of money, they're starting Justin Fields. And I think it's a good move. Like me and Matt talked about it on our last episode. There are not enough options out there that excite you. This is the only one with a young, rising ascending quarterback who can do things outside of just like stand there and throw. Like he can run. He's going to be the greatest running quarterback we've ever had, besides like the 2 games Mike Vick started for us. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with him. But I do want to remind everybody, just because he was the best option on the market does not mean he's a good quarterback. He still has a long, long way to go. He's not a great passer. He struggles reading defenses. He struggles with anticipation. He struggles big time with turnovers, especially fumbles. And if you look at like last year, he had a ton of turnover-worthy plays, but not a lot of turnovers. Meaning he had like 7 fumbles, but recovered all but 2, which is amazing. He had 6 turnover-worthy interceptions, but actually only threw, I think, 2 picks. So it's like people are just dropping the ball out there when he's throwing it to him. So you got to keep in mind that he's still not he's not going to be what we thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be. He's not like our savior here. But if he is, this is a great contract. This is going to be the lowest tiered starter contract in the NFL. So if he has a good year this year, then we have a buffer. We can go into next year with Justin Fields. We can draft a quarterback, or we can extend Justin Fields. It gives us a lot more options going into next year rather than just us saying, oh, we're starting Tyrod Taylor and Carson Wentz, and we have to, no doubt, 100% take a quarterback in the first round. We're trading up. No, who cares? So I think this gives us a lot more options in that. The other thing, too, it's going to make Garrett Wilson happy. Garrett played with Justin Fields in college, and it sounds like he was pumped to hear that Justin Fields was our quarterback. And then he also played with Josh Myers, who he was his center in college, and the Jets just signed him, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I think there's a lot to like. I'm still very cautious about it, though. Just because we signed Justin Fields, I don't think we're going to win 10 games just because of that. We're not winning 5 extra games because of our quarterback situation. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this offense shakes out. I imagine we're going to run the ball about 40 times a game. It's going to be Braylon Allen. It's going to be Breece Hall. It's going to be Justin Fields. It's going to be little dump offs to Garrett Wilson. Hopefully we can blow the top off every now and then. We don't have any other receivers. We don't have any other tight ends. So I don't know who else we're throwing to. But that's kind of where we're at this point. So get ready for the ground and pound to come back. I know Jets fans, that was the last time we had any sort of glory, was with Rex Ryan and the ground and pound. So hopefully that's another piece to this coming up over the next couple of weeks as we see who else the team is on the team. The next signing that I was really excited about, this was probably my favorite signing out of all of them, Andre Cisco. This was not a guy that I called out last week, but he's a free safety from the Jacksonville Jaguars. We sent him to a 1-year, $10 million deal. I think this is the exact player that we were describing last week when we said young, ascending talent that we feel like can grow into their contract. Now, unfortunately, we only signed him for a one-year, $10 million deal, which is a good deal, but I wish it was like a 2 or 3 year deal, to be totally honest with you. So for him, ball hawk. We don't have many people who can pick off passes right now. I think we only had 4 interceptions all of last year, and 3 of them were in the last 3 games. So I think it's going to be huge to have someone like him floating around, and I think he's perfect for Aaron Glenn. he loves to take risks when it comes to trying to cause turnovers, and we need someone like that. So very excited for him. The other thing too that like is awesome about his story, he's actually from Valley Stream in New York, and there's a picture of him. I think he posted this on Twitter in fifth grade or something like that. He's at MetLife Stadium. He was a diehard Jets fan as a kid, taking a picture inside MetLife Stadium. And I think in the tweet, he was like, fifth grade me would be living his dream right now, knowing that he just got signed by the New York Jets. So I thought that was really cool, something really exciting to root for. He also went to Syracuse, so he's a New York guy. So I'm really excited for Andre Cisco, and I hope he actually fills into the person that Aaron Glenn thinks he can be. So that's a great one, and we really needed a safety badly. Number 3, this is in really no particular order. The first two are my two. Justin Fields is obviously the bit most popular. Andre Cisco is my favorite. I love this one too, Josh Myers. We just talked about him. He is the center from the Green Bay Packers. We signed him to a 1-year, $2 million deal. So super cheap. He's going to be a backup behind Joe Tippmann and both of our guards. So if anyone gets hurt, he can fill right in. He wasn't great as a center last year, which is why he's getting backup money right now. He went to Ohio State, played with Justin Fields, like we said, and Garrett Wilson, and Jeremy Ruckert for that matter. So I think we're just like bringing the Ohio State Buckeyes of 2021, I guess it was, back together, which is really weird. But yeah, I like the signing. Some people are saying, do we put Josh Myers at center, put Joe Tippmann at guard, and put AVT at tackle? I don't love that. I think AVT should just stay at guard, like keep him stable. Every time we moved him to tackle, he got hurt, so let's just leave him where he is. So yeah, love Josh Myers. Next one, another one of my, this is just like a personal favorite because I think it's funny, and my brother's a diehard Chargers fan, so it was fun to watch him towards the end of the year. But Stone Cole Smart is his full name. 1-year deal, 26 years old, more of a developmental tight end. He was actually a quarterback at Old Dominion, so it hasn't been too long that he's been playing tight end. He actually played with Zach Kuntz, who's one of our backup tight ends as well at Old Dominion, which is crazy. It's like two athletic freaks on the same team. The reason I liked him is because he actually started to come on as like a receiving tight end at the end of last year. He's like tall and lanky. He's like 6'4", 220, I want to say, 226 or something like that. So he definitely won't be like your blocking tight end, which we need in this like run first offense. But I think it'll be fun to see if we can like create some packages for him and get him out in space, see what happens. So Stone Smart, another one of my favorites. Now this one was not my favorite. This one is leaving me confused. I'm not really sure what to think about it. But Brandon Stevens, 3 years, $36 million, $23 million guaranteed, cornerback from the Baltimore Ravens. The reason why I'm not sure if I love this one is because he had a really, really bad year. He was one of the worst graded cornerbacks all year last year. He gave up a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns. I don't know why, to be honest with you. And I haven't heard from a lot of people about why he was so poor because he's had better years before that. It just seemed like he couldn't find the ball. At the last second, he'd try to find the ball, couldn't, and he would blow his coverage because of it. So this was a really iffy one because I feel like we paid a lot of money for it, and I hope it works out because he's going to get peppered because no one's going to be throwing Sauce's way. So it's all going to be coming to Brandon Stevens. And DJ Reed was able to hold his own, but will this guy be able to? I don't know. The other thing about him, this is kind of intriguing. He played safety previously, so I'm wondering, did we sign him to play safety? Is this someone who, like, we're covering up as a corner, but is really going to play a starting safety with Andre Cisco, and we'll have, like, Qantas Stiggers or Jarek Bernard Converse play cornerback? I don't know. That money to me says corner money, but we'll see how it works out. But yeah, that was a really interesting one. I'm not sure if I love it. I know the corners were going for a lot of money, which is why we kind of stayed back. But Brandon Stevens need that much money? I'm not sure. So we'll see how that one works out. Next one, we finally signed a wide receiver, Tyler Johnson. Wide receiver, he played for the Rams, the Bucks. Honestly, he's probably a wide receiver 4 or 5. I really liked him coming out of college, actually. I really wanted the Jets to take him, but he just hasn't been productive in the NFL for some reason. We have nobody in our wide receiver room, and it's really starting to scare me that we didn't make any moves during free agency so far. There's still a lot of people out there. There's still a lot of veterans. But man, I'm going to feel so bad for Garrett Wilson if it's just him and Stone Smart that we're throwing to next year. So, yeah, we got Tyler Johnson. Chris Boyd, cornerback from the Texans. He's really a special teamer. You might remember in the playoffs, he's the random special teamer that like ran up and pushed his coach after like a big play in the playoffs last year. That's the only thing I know about him and I remember about him, which is not positive. So I'm like, we'll see what happens with this guy. So that was another weird one. Then we go down the D-tackle run that the Jets went on. They signed a bunch, all rotational players. No one that's exciting to me. Just depth across the board. So we got Byron Cowart, defensive tackle for the Bears, 1 year, $1.4 million deal. Journeyman, he played for our defensive line coach last year. Run stuffer, rotational, like depth. Like that's really it. We'll see if he makes the team. Jay Tefele, defensive tackle for the Bengals, same thing, run stopper. I don't even know if he's going to make the team, to be totally honest with you, but he's definitely depth. Derek Nandi, this one was interesting. He's just a little bit older now. He's probably over his prime. Defensive tackle for the Chiefs. He was a rotational player. He's won 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs and was a starter for, I think, 6 years on that defensive line. But his best days are behind him, so he's essentially a first or second down player at this point, and hopefully he can stop the run because we need someone next to Quinton Williams. I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be an experiment. Leonard Taylor's going to get a lot of run. So are these 3 guys. And we're going to see who actually fits next to Quinton so he stops getting double teams and he can get freed up so he can go sack the quarterback, make some run stuffs, things like that, because he's still an outstanding player. All right, we're getting to the end here. We're close. This one is a wild one. I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't think I like it. But Chukwuma Okorafor, offensive tackle for the Patriots. So he was so we lost Morgan Moses. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. We lost him in free agency. So we have no right tackle right now, which is brutal. We really needed Morgan Moses to come back. But Chukwuma was a longtime starter for the Steelers. Got a big extension, but unfortunately, like a year or two into his extension, they cut him. He goes to play for the Patriots. Last year, he's going to be a backup for the Patriots. The starter goes down in, I think it was in practice or training camp. So he goes into the first game as the starter. I think he lasted 12 snaps and then got benched. And then what does he do? He quits on the team and no one ever sees him again. That is not the kind of player I want on my team right now. You know how easy it's going to be to quit on the Jets when we're 0-4 and the MetLife Stadium's empty? Oh, God. So, yeah, hopefully he is a depth piece. He'll be a backup swing tackle. He'll be our upgrade over a Carter Warren or a Max Mitchell maybe. But, yeah, he can't be our starter. So there's got to be some other options out there for offensive tackle that we just haven't seen yet. But that one scares me. Next one, Rashad Weaver, a D-end, another depth piece. He's been in the league for like 5 years and only has 5.5 sacks, so he's not your sack the quarterback type D-end. But he does have size and speed, and I know Aaron Glenn likes that, but once again, we'll see if he makes the team. And then finally, last but not least, our final signing, Austin McNamara, a punter who has never played in the NFL before. I have no idea why they signed him. Probably a camp body just to keep Thomas Morstead healthy because Thomas Morstead's 41. That's the only thing I can think of because why else would we need a punter who's never played in the NFL before? So, as you can see, that's all of our players that we've signed. In my mind, when I read that list and I look at it, I say, damn, we just lost our 14th straight off-season championship title. There's not a lot to be excited about in here. It's depth. It's young upside type folks that hopefully work out. If they don't, short-term contracts, we can move on after next year or after this year. So I get the mindset behind Muji and Glenn is that, hey, we don't really know what we are yet. We got to get out of this financial hole that we're in with Aaron Rodgers, CJ Mosley. I think we're still paying CJ Uzama, all these random folks who have been on the team for forever. Wouldn't be surprised if we're still paying Carl Lawson at this point. So I get it. The other piece to this is a lot of the Jets' former players who were on the team last year got signed to big deals with other orgs, which means we're finally eligible for compensatory picks. For those of you that don't know what that is, a compensatory pick is when you lose more players for higher amounts of money than you bring in a free agency period, the NFL will reward you with draft picks for the following draft. So, like, for example, if we got rid of Bryce Huff last year and we didn't sign anybody, Bryce Huff signed like a 4-year, $50 million deal or whatever with the Eagles, we probably would have gotten a third-round pick for Bryce Huff. But because we signed so many great big players, the formula didn't work out for us. We didn't earn any draft picks. So right now, we've signed so many cheap players, besides Andre Cisco, who else? Justin Fields, and Brandon Stevens. We're eligible because a lot of our players have signed for big money. So let's actually talk about some of those players. So who we lose? The first person that got signed in all of free agency, which blew my mind, was Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick at 12 o'clock on Monday, when the legal tampering period opened, he was the first tweet I saw. He signed a 1-year, $14 million deal with the Bucs. So boom, that's a $14 million deal right there that helps our compensatory picks. Number 2, this one was brutally sad, and I hate that he went to the Patriots, but Morgan Moses goes to the Patriots, 3 years, $24 million. I was surprised he got that many years, being, I think he's like 38 or something like that. He's crazy old. But he's a warrior. I love that guy. I wish he was still on the team. But that's another huge contract that I wasn't anticipating. DJ Reed, I was anticipating a large contract for him. 3 years, $48 million, goes to the Lions. So good for DJ. He's earned it. This next one this is the worst contract I have probably ever seen in all of free agency. My mind is so blown that this person got this much money. It is unbelievable, and I think that's why we're in the position we're in, is because now we think we can get some compensatory picks for next year based on this. But Javon Kinlaw gets 3 years, $45 million with the Commanders. This guy was a good rotational player, sure, but he was brutal last year. Brutal. To get 3 years, $45 million is absolutely bananas to me. I mean, good for him. If someone's offering, you take it. I would love that kind of money. So, can't blame them. But the Commanders, what are you doing? What are you doing? I think Peters is the GM over there who came from the Niners, which is where Kinlaw got drafted. So that's probably where it all started. But man, that is crazy to me. To replace their D-line that they had, cut all those folks inside Javon Kinlaw for 3 years, $45 million. Crazy. But that's that. We'll move on. Solomon Thomas, great for him. He got a 2-year deal with the Cowboys for $8 million. So happy for him. But that was another one. $8 million for 2 years. Didn't expect that. Brandon Eccles goes to the Steelers. Disappointed. I wanted him back on the Jets, but I get it. So good for him going to the Steelers. Ashton Davis gets a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. Wes Schweitzer gets a 1-year deal with the Pats. And Kenny Yeboah, he was oddly like one of our longest tenured Jets, gets a 1-year deal with the Lions. So those are all of our folks that we lost in free agency so far. So yeah, we're in an advantageous position right now. If we don't sign any other big name players to big money, we'll probably get a 4th-round pick next year, which I think the team's excited about because we lost, I think it was our 2nd-round pick for Hassan Reddick. So we need extra ammunition for next year. So that is our free agency period so far. Let's quickly go around the league. Just a few ones that stood out to me that I thought were some hilarious, some I was sad about. Zach Wilson is the number 1 that I saw. Goes to the Miami Dolphins. He'll be the backup. Probably the most important backup position in all of the NFL because you never know when Tua Tagovailoa is going down. You bet there's a 100% chance that Tua is going to get hurt the week before he plays the Jets. Zach Wilson's going to have to play against us, and he's going to beat us. There's just like no doubt in my mind. I can't remember the last time we beat one of our former quarterbacks. We lost to Sam Darnold when we first got Zach Wilson. We lose to Geno Smith constantly. I mean, we threw a pick to Leonard Williams, one of our former draft picks. We just, oh God, we struggle against them. It's just painful. So we'll see about Zach Wilson. But yep, he's on the Dolphins. Devontae Adams, this was one of my favorite signings of all of free agency, going to the Rams. that offense is going to be awesome. I think the Rams are going to be one of the best teams in the league. If they don't have to go somewhere like Philadelphia or any of those outdoor places for the NFC Championship game, I think they could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. So love the Rams. Talanoa Hufanga, who we really wanted on the Jets as a safety, goes to the Broncos. Javon Holland, probably one of the top safeties on the market, goes to the Giants. Thought the Jets were going to be in on him, but it got too high. Milton Williams, probably the best player in all of free agency, a defensive tackle, goes to the Pats for like an ungodly amount of money. Pause for a second. I've never seen the Pats had the most money in free agency. I think they spent $125 million. $125 million in about an hour. It was unbelievable to see all the players that they brought in, including Carlton Davis, another one that they brought in. So good for the Pats, I guess. We'll see if that makes them competitive, but it's going to be really interesting this year. Next up, we have Geno Smith getting traded to the Raiders. Goes back with Pete Carroll, so two former Jets together again. And then, of course, because that happens, what does Sam Darnold do? Another former Jet legend. He goes to Seattle to replace Geno, and they sign Cooper Kupp to help out Sam Darnold. So that's a really interesting one as well. So those were like the big ones that stood out to me, the fun ones. I have one more topic that I want to bring up, and then we will wrap it up here. There are big contract extensions that just went out today. This morning you wake up, you see Jamar Chase gets extended to be the highest paid player, I think it was non-quarterback, in NFL history. T. Higgins also gets re-signed. So somehow the Bengals signed both of their wide receivers. T. Higgins gets almost $30 million a year. And then Derek Stingley gets re-signed by the Texans for almost $30 million a year. The reason why I bring these three up is because the whole time I'm sitting here during free agency and I'm saying, are we saving this money to re-sign and extend Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner? Is that what we're holding this for? I'm like, okay, like maybe it's going to happen later in the offseason. But like we as Jets fans have been screaming our heads off, especially to extend Garrett. And we should extend Sauce as well. You should not be giving up Sauce Gardner. The longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to be. And I think Sauce Gardner is the easy extension because you just give him the top of the market. He's the best corner. You give him the top of the market because it's not about who's actually best. It's who's next to get paid. So the problem is all these folks were getting paid. J.C. Horn just got paid to get to $26 million annually. So I'm like, okay, great. If we re-sign Sauce now, he'll cost $27 million a year. But no, Derek Stingley beats us to it. Derek Stingley gets like $4 million more than J.C. Horn a year. He's at $30 million. So now, in order to make Sauce happy, we're going to have to pay him probably $32 million a year. So that's what, $6 million a year that we just wasted by waiting too much time to extend this guy. Now, I'm just thinking that it's our fault for waiting this long. Maybe it's his agent saying, nope, don't sign yet. Let everyone else sign first, and then we can go to you. But we know Sauce wants to be here. So it's time to pay him. He's an easy one. You're not giving up a two-time first-team All-Pro. I know he had a down year. I know he needs to work on his tackling. I know he has to get better at finding the football and turning it over. But he's a great lockdown corner. He's got to work on the penalties too. That was another big thing this year. But man, we got to re-sign him. So that's one. The second one, I thought Garrett was going to be a little bit more difficult because he's not the best player at his position. Like Jamar Chase is clearly better than him. Justin Jefferson's better than him. CeeDee Lamb's better than him. So it's more like who's like the 7th or 8th best wide receiver that you can put him next to. Now I thought Garrett might be close to like $27 million a year. But now with T. Higgins, I think he's going to try to match what T. Higgins is getting. Because T. Higgins is a number 2 receiver. And if he's getting $30 million, Garrett's going to be like, I'm a number 1 receiver. I should be getting more than that. So once again, because we waited, now we got to pay more. And the price tag is just going to keep going up the longer and longer we wait. So Darren Muji, once again, if you want to make all the Jets fans happy, re-sign Garrett Wilson, re-sign Sauce Gardner, and then gear up to re-sign Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall. Those are the guys coming up next. So those are my big topics. That was a long episode. There was a lot going on in this past week. Like I said, I wish I was able to do a podcast every night last week, so I could have split this up and made it a lot more digestible, but I hope you enjoyed. there's going to be a lot more to come over the next couple weeks, especially leading up to the draft. So we're going to talk all about it as it comes through. Hopefully we see some more free agents, but like I said, I'm very disappointed that we're about to lose our 14th straight offseason championship title. But, I guess this is what we got to do to get back in shape here. So yeah, I'm a little disappointed. We still have a lot of holes. I don't think we filled many of them. And we'll see how it shakes out over the rest of free agency. So thank you all so much for listening. If you could follow on TikTok at JuicyJet25, if you can follow on Twitter at KevinRooney25, if you can like, subscribe, rate, review, whether you're listening on audio or watching on YouTube, I would 100% appreciate it. I still got these hats, so if anyone wants one, you just let me know. And otherwise, I'll talk to y'all real soon, and hopefully we've got some more fun signings that can come through. So I'll see y'all later.